Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the best controller settings and graphic settings. I was dealing with a bunch of technical difficulties in the first day of Warzone 2 being out. Just crashed.
One of those guys. I don't know if they had loadouts.
My game crashed. It's fucking...
Yeah, we got to figure out the...
My game just crashed. Plating on plating? My game crashed. My game crashed. My game crashed. My game... Doc?
Yeah, it just crashed.
So we went through a ton of different settings, a ton of different graphic settings, and I think we've tweaked it. I think we've tweaked it to perfection. And on top of that, we're going to go over, obviously, my controller settings as well. If you guys are enjoying the content, you enjoy this video today, please take a second to hit the like button. It's completely free to do, and it helps videos way more than you may think. Secondly, make sure you sub to the YouTube channel and turn on the bell notifications so you're always notified about all this new Warzone 2 content coming out, because we are pumping it out insanely. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's get into it. So we are going to start out with the with my personal controller settings. I am rocking default button layout because, for those of you that don't know, I play claw. I don't use the paddles on the back of my SCUF. Normally people hold their controllers just like this, like with the index fingers on the triggers, and then thumbs on the thumbsticks. I just take my index finger, I put it over top of all 4 of the buttons here, so I can push them with this finger. Usually I use the edge of my finger, and then the middle finger comes up to the trigger, so I can do that. And then I always keep my thumbs on the thumbsticks. And the people that can't pull that off, the people that don't do claw, because I always tell people, if you want to try to save some money on paddle controllers, you can just go ahead and try to learn claw. But I know a lot of people end up coming in my chat saying, like, hey, I wasn't able to pull it off personally, so I just say, hey, go check out the SCUF controllers, because then you can just put paddles on the back, and you can remap these buttons to said paddles, so that you never, and the reason for doing any of these things, playing claw or using paddles, is to never take your thumbs off the thumbsticks. Very important. If you are interested in grabbing one of those SCUF controllers, you know, I may or may not have my own very own custom Zlaner SCUF that you can go over to their website right now. I'm going to put a link up in the screen in the description. Links are going to be all over the place. You can click those, head over, and you could customize your very own controller today. Like I said, I don't even use the paddles on mine, but you could still configure so many different things on the controller. The thumbstick length, you can configure the design on the front, which, I mean, obviously you want to go with the Zlaner design, and you can do the digital triggers on the back, which is just like traditional triggers. They just come all the way back. My triggers kind of just, they click like a mouse click. Which are kind of like trigger stops, you know what I mean? But it's kind of just like the next evolution in that. So, yeah, just click that link, go check it out, and make sure you use code Zlaner at checkout, baby. From there, we got flip off, stick layout default, controller vibration off. I keep that off. I grew up my whole life playing with it on, but honestly, you could just turn this off, man. Like, I feel like, here's the thing. If you play with this on, and like I said, I was one of those people that from probably like my early childhood all the way up into my high school, I played with this. I always had vibration on, and it's, again, it's not the end of the world. You can use it. It's not gonna like affect anything that much, but you don't need it on. There's more than enough visual, you know, cues on your screen when you're getting shot at and taking fall damage and all that kind of stuff, that you don't need your controller to shake for you. You know what I mean? I think the best way I can kind of explain it is if you're like, imagine when you're writing with a pen and on a piece of paper, and every time it touches the paper, it vibrates. I mean, there's just no real need for it. It's like, even if it gives you just the slightest edge, why not turn it off? And I promise you, most of you are probably going to, like, when you turn it off, if you've used it for so long, I remember when I changed it, this goes for anything. When you change sensitivity or controller vibration, it feels very foreign at first, and that makes you almost want to just switch it right back on. But I promise you, if you stick with it for a few days, it will eventually become your new norm, and playing with it on will feel weird. Like, now when I turn this on, it throws me off. I have to turn it off. I play 6.6 sensitivity. I tell most people to stick between anywhere from, I really would not go any lower than like 4, and I would stay within like 10 if you can. Obviously, there are lots of great players that play on tons of different sensitivities across the whole spectrum of it, but realistically, like, this is your sweet spot. You know, at the end of the day, you can make just about anything work, but you see a lot of professional players, a lot of content creators sticking in between this 4, I would say like 5 even to 10 area. And personally, I play 6. I've played 7. I've even played as high as 8, but 6 is where I'm at right now, 6.6. ADS sensitivity multiplayer, I got that on 1X, and all the rest of them also on 1X. I don't think I've changed any of this stuff. Automatic tac sprint, we've got that turned on. Honestly, personal preference for me, I played all of Warzone because there was slide canceling. There isn't slide canceling in this game anymore, so it's not really as needed for that fluid slide canceling moment, since it's not even in the game. But I still like having automatic tac sprint on. It's nice to not have to like button mash my thumbstick. Equipment behavior is hold. ADS plus melee. I think all this stuff is just the same. Actually, except for these last two. These last two are very, very important. So your interact/reload behavior, prioritize interact is the same setting as contextual tap from Warzone, which basically allows you to run around, and when you're trying to pick up items, instead of having to stand there and hold the pickup button, you can just tap it and it instantly goes in your inventory. Same thing with opening doors, same thing goes with everything else. And the way contextual tap worked and now prioritize interact, if reload and interact are available simultaneously, then the tap to interact and you hold to reload. It's really, really straightforward, and it makes the fluidity of your looting much, much more fluid. Armor plate behavior, apply all. This is defaulted, apply one, apply all. It basically makes it so you don't have to continue to hold the apply button. You can just hold it one time. Once it starts putting one plate on, it'll do the rest, and you can let off triangle or Y or whatever you use. Let's head over to advanced settings. Target aim assist on. Aim assist type, default. A lot of people were using Black Ops aim assist when the game first came out, when people were playing multiplayer, and that's because Black Ops aim assist was busted. It was very, very good. Now, in the last update, they recently nerfed Black Ops aim assist, and it's probably still usable, but I think I saw a lot of people going back to default. I personally went back to default, and I'm playing on, that's what I'm playing on. All of this stuff here, I haven't touched any of this. Not really sure. Actually, I have it turned off. So I think this is kind of like almost like how on Apex Legends you can go more in depth with the controller settings and the aim settings. You can test some of this out if you'd like to, but I just stick with the default default, like, you know, sensitivities and stuff like that. Aim response curve. You want to switch this from standard to dynamic. I know some people play linear. I think D plays linear actually, but I know I play dynamic. I know a lot of people play on dynamic for controller. I think the rest of these are just a lot of default, except for input dead zones. Now, dead zones, a lot of people get tricked up with these. They like copy and paste what other people are using. You don't want to do that. The whole thing with input dead zones is like your stick drift. Stick drift is basically, Ryu, you can show like on the screen. Stick drift is basically when you aren't even touching either your thumbsticks and your camera is like moving from left to right, and you want it to be as close to that like line as possible. So with some controllers, it's just like, depending on how new your controller is, sometimes when you have a fresh new controller, the stick drift is not as bad, and you can put it like super, super low and have it in this range that I have mine at, around 3. Even though this controller is like literally 3-4 months old, I've been playing on it for a while, I still keep mine around, I keep mine on 4. When I go ahead and I turn this all the way down to 0.00, you're going to notice I'm not even touching my stick right now. Here, I'll just slightly budge it a little bit, and you'll notice I'm not touching my stick right now, and it's kind of hard to tell. Well, you look at the crosshair. You can see that it's moving right now, and I'm not even touching the thumbstick. And that is because the dead zone is turned all the way off. So it's basically going to, like, that is what your dead zone is. And you don't really want it to be kind of, like, moving on its own like that. Same thing happens with the left stick as well, and the right stick. So what you want to do, what I usually do, is I try to, like I said, ride that fine line as much as possible. I'm going to put mine about 0.02 and see it's still doing it. See what I mean? It's kind of dragging down. I'm not even touching it. Let's put this back up to 0.04. Oh wait, that was my right stick. Whoops, I messed with my left stick. Let's try 0.03 and see. Yeah, basically no, it's not happening anymore at this point. But like I said, depending on the sensitivity of your own sticks, you're gonna want to make sure you tweak that a little bit. Hopefully that gives you a good understanding of what the dead zone setting kind of is. So for all this stuff down here, I keep all of this basically the same, and except for this one particular setting right here, which is invert, slide, and dive behavior. Now, this is something that you can, this is kind of personal preference, but this is something I find with this particular game, with both Modern Warfare 2, just the multiplayer, and with Warzone. Sliding is really not useful, in my opinion. It's not really good to do that much. I think diving is actually useful sometimes, getting you into cover, quickly diving into cover away from gunshots. It can actually save you, I think, in a lot of cases. And what doing standard does is it makes it so that, obviously, tap the slide and hold the dive. If you invert this, it goes hold the slide and tap to dive. So when you're sprinting, you tap it and you instantly dive. It gives you that extra few milliseconds instead of like having to hold the button and then getting the dive. It gets you that instant dive. I put that on invert myself. Then we've got plunging underwater. I think I keep that default. Parachute auto deploy. I turn that. It's usually defaulted on. I turn that off so I can control how low to the ground that I can pull my shootout. Sprinting door bash, keep that on. A ledge mantling, mantle only. I just keep that all the same. ADS 6 swap is the same. Backpack alternate control. This is a very, very, very nice setting if you're really not liking the looting in the game. It's not going to change everything completely for you, but it is still a nice little change. Instead of using your directional D-pads to navigate your backpack, you can now use the movement stick to navigate your backpack interface, and this will put you in auto move forward as well. You can switch this on if you'd rather use basically navigate your backpack interface with the stick instead of the thumbstick. I personally like that more. Then we got weapon mount, movement exit. That's just on. All this stuff is kind of the same. Depleted ammo on. And now we get to vehicle camera recenter. I think this is defaulted off, or actually, sorry, it's defaulted short delay. I turn this off because I just prefer to recenter myself. Like sometimes when you're driving and you want to be able to just look to your left for a long period of time, you don't want the game to push you back to center. You can just do that yourself. It's very easy to recenter. You don't have to do that. Camera initial position, I have this on, I think this is defaulted on free look as well. And yeah, that is basically it for all of my controller settings. Let's dive into the graphic settings, folks. I'm currently at the Optic headquarters. I'm on a different PC. I'm at a dual PC setup that they set up for me here. So when I get home, obviously I'm going to be on a different PC. But regardless of that, these settings are basically going to be good for anyone's PC. It doesn't matter how good of a rig you have or bad of a rig. This is going to give you probably some of the best FPS that you can have. And it's just going to make your game feel very, very buttery smooth. And like I said, I was dealing with a bunch of issues the other day, and I was able to get a lot of that fixed by switching a lot of these settings. And maybe they'll be able to help you as well. So I'm doing full screen exclusive. Sometimes people got to do full screen borderless and you'll have a better experience. I don't know what causes that, but full screen exclusive is what I'm rocking. And then we've got 240, basically 240 refresh rate, display resolution 1920 by 1080, dynamic resolution off, automatic aspect ratio. We just keep that automatic. VSync off. Custom frame rates. Now, I've got this set to 250 in the game. In the menu, I think this is defaulted somewhere else. I just have this at 120, and I have this at 30 as well. These are basically just this is menu custom frame rate, out of focus custom frame rate. You don't need those as high, obviously, as your gameplay. Brightness, my brightness is just default 50. For this particular setup, obviously, this type of a setting is the kind of setting that you just want to, this is personal preference. If you, on your screen, because sometimes like your monitor brightness and settings are different than everyone else's, so maybe, you know, having a little more brightness is better, a little less brightness might be better. I keep mine on default for this particular setup. And then now we are going over to the meat and potatoes of this whole bad boy, the quality. Now, obviously for console, you guys can basically disregard a lot of this stuff, but if you're on PC, there's a lot more stuff that you can kind of mess with. We're going to be on a custom quality preset. We're keeping this at 100. You always want your render resolution at 100. And now for this is a very important one. For a lot of the day that was giving me a lot of graininess and making the game look terrible was I had this turned off. I think it's defaulted to NVIDIA DLSS or something like that. I turned it off when I started playing and the game just looked terrible. You want to put it on Fidelity FXCAS, and then you want to click Show More. This is going to be set to, I think, about 50. You want to turn all the way up to 100. Anti-aliasing, we've got that on SMAT2X. Low, 90 for the video memory. I think it's defaulted to 80. I think if you stay anywhere from 80 to 90, you're fine. Texture resolution, we keep this very low. Now, real quick, before we dive into all these, this is for optimizing your gameplay. This is for making the game look as clear and more so giving you an advantage at seeing players a little bit easier. Your game's not going to look as good as if I put all this stuff to ultra and high quality, obviously. You know what I mean? If I put all this stuff way up, notice how the estimated VRAM usage is just insane in comparison to keeping it on very low. I prefer performance over the way the game looks, so that's what these are. This is what these settings are made for. I've got this texture resolution very low. We're going texture filter low, nearby level low, distant level low, clutter draw distance short, particle quality high, particle quality level low, bullet impacts and sprays. I've got this on right now, but I might turn this off in the future if people start getting pretty cheeky with the sprays on the wall. I remember, if you guys remember back on Verdansk, people would like spray insides of buildings, and dude, sometimes I'd be running up a flight of stairs and that would just absolutely throw me off. So you can just turn that off if you don't really want to mess with that. Shader quality, I've got that low. Tessellation, I've got that off. Terrain memory, we got that on max. On-demand texture streaming, that's on by default. Streaming quality, that's on normal. Volumetric quality, we got that on low. Deferred physics off. Water caustics off. Shadow map resolution, we've got that on low. Screen space off. Spot shadow quality low. Spot cache low. Particle lighting high. Ambient occlusion both. Ambient occlusion we're actually going to turn off. I don't know why that's on both. We're going to turn that off. Screen space reflections we've got off. Static reflection quality we've got that on low. Weather grid volumes low. NVIDIA reflex. These last ones are very, very, very important. NVIDIA reflex low latency. We've just got this on, which is the default. Depth of field. Usually this is on. We turn that off. What that does is basically the out of focus blur effect is disabled when you turn this off, and you don't really want the blur when you're looking through. Yes, maybe it'll make you focus in more on your target. I'm not sure, but it also makes it so that any of your peripherals are a little bit blurred out. And you don't, I don't personally like that. I like to have it so that I can see everything clearly on what's going on around me while I'm taking shots at someone. World motion blur. You want this shit off. This is default off, I'm pretty sure, but weapon motion blur is defaulted on. And notice how disgusting the game looks with motion blur. You can see it in those photos there on the right. I mean, dude, you can have this on if you want, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like motion blur of any kind is just disgusting. Film grain, we've got that down to 0.0. Now, the very, very last settings we are going to mess with is the view section. Now, console, yay, you guys have field of view. Very exciting. You've got the field of view slider, which is very nice. Finally, they're bringing it to you guys. That's a big W for everyone on console. I personally play on 120, but I've played on 110. I've also even used to play on 105. When I first started playing Warzone, I mean, I played Call of Duty my whole life on console. When I started playing Warzone, I had already been on PC for a few years playing Fortnite, and I switched. I went from like the base FOV up to 105. That was kind of all I could do. 120 was too much for me. But then over time, I went from 105 to 110. And then eventually I went from 110 to 115. And then eventually I went just the whole way, man. And now I probably could go to like 150 if they had it. I'm just trolling. Honestly, keeping it anywhere from 105 to like 120 is really, really, really nice. It's just nice to be able to see more around you. ADS field of view. This used to be on Warzone independent by default. They now have it switched to affected by default, which is very, very nice. This really only takes effect when you're not playing on the default field of view, and what it does is it basically makes it so that aiming down sights zooms to a value closer to the field of view setting. It only applies to low magnified levels, less than 3.25x, including iron sight. So it just makes it so much better. If you turn this to independent, you'll see what I mean. When you ADS, it makes it so it zooms super far in, and it's just like, it does not look good. And every time you zoom in, it's like very I don't know, you could get probably motion sickness. Weapon field of view is on default right now. I'm not sure why, because I set this to wide yesterday. Now it's on wide. That's what you want to have it on. Basically, this particular setting, it is not going to affect anything at all other than giving you a slight advantage. And why it's going to give you a slight advantage is because your gun is going to appear smaller on the screen. You want your gun to be looking smaller on the screen. It basically, it doesn't do anything at all. When you ADS with it, it's still going to look the same. When you do everything else with it, hip firing, shooting with the gun, it's not going to affect any of that whatsoever. It's literally just going to make your you have more you can see more things in front of you and around you. You don't have to see your gun taking up as much space on the screen. Third-person field of view, I haven't really messed with this yet because I haven't played too much third-person, but obviously you can put that wherever you would like. Now, these ones down here are very important as well. Camera. These ones are defaulted by 100%, which gives you first-person camera movement shake. You want that all the way down to 50%. You want the least amount of possible shake on your screen. You don't want your game to be shaking. It's going to make it harder for you to see players. Third-person, I just put that one down to 50% as well, even though I haven't really been messing with it that much. I switched this from helmet camera to game perspective, but I'm pretty sure when you're spectating people, you can just toggle that with Y or triangle. Anyway, folks, I hope these settings helped you guys out. If they did, please, like I said, take a second to hit that like button. It would be much, much appreciated. Sub to the YouTube channel because we are pushing out insane amounts of Warzone 2 content, giving you guys all the best edges you can when it comes to classes, settings, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to be breaking world records, tournaments, I mean, just endless amounts of content on the channel. So make sure you sub and turn on the bell notifications. I love you guys very much. Thank you for watching.